All right, if you love learning about mentorship, continuous learning, and things that are crucial to build a successful photography business, this episode is for you. My guest, Joy Michelle, and I talked about all the things that you need to build your brand as a strong presence. She's a YouTube creator, she is a photographer herself, business coach, and she had a lot of input in all the great things that you need to make sure that you're growing your brand and staying true to yourself. We talked about not staying small in terms of visibility. We talked about submitting your work, collaborating with others, and really the importance of working with a mentor or a coach to guide your business journey. This was a great conversation. Joy is a joy to talk to and to work with. And I know you guys are going to really enjoy this episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I am your host, Nada Salvatore, and today I have the amazing Joy Michelle with me. She is a photographer turned YouTuber and business coach. She also has two little ones like me, and she's an online course creator and host of the Call to Both podcast and founder of PhotoBoss. Welcome, Joy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, Nada. Thank you.
I'm so excited that you decided to join me. I know that you have a ton of information to share with the audience, and they're very lucky that you are willing to come here and share some time with us.
I'm excited to dive in, and I feel like we have a lot in common. My husband is a physical therapist, and I think your husband is as well.
Yes,
is that right?
I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yep. I was listening to your show, and I was like, oh my goodness, we have so much in common.
Yes, that was my my prior world, healthcare and physical therapy and some teaching in that arena too. So it's been fun to transition to this, but also continue some of the teaching into this new field for me, which is one of the things I love. So tell us a little bit about what you do now, all the things that are in your life today, and then we're going to backtrack into your story a little bit.
Yes. Okay. So what I do now, primarily, I'm a 10-year plus entrepreneur. I feel like I've been doing this and we're in like the third iteration of Joy Michelle Co. But right now, my main focus is educating photographers, helping them to grow in their confidence and in their profit, all things business and marketing for photographers. And I do that through my brand, PhotoBoss. And then, like you said, I'm a YouTuber and a podcaster. I am just a diehard lover of all things content. You can't keep me out of my content. It's such a fun way to build a community and to connect with people, and has really carried me from both my business of 8 years as a wedding photographer into what my business is today.
I love that. Yeah, that's how I first met you. You didn't know I was on the other side of the screen watching a YouTube video.
I love that.
Many, many years ago. So I'm excited that we get to connect today. So you kind of started photography right out of college. So tell us a little bit about that journey, and then how did you transition to being an educator and being a content creator?
Yeah, so I did. I was learning and starting my business while I was still in school. So I'm in college, I'm at the University of Maryland, but I'm mentally so checked out. Like I was like, we're going to finish this degree, but I'm not doing this. I'm not getting a corporate job. I'm going to work for myself. And really the main catalyst behind that was marrying my husband, meeting my wedding photographer, and getting to meet her and be like, oh, this is like your full-time job. This is so cool. I want to do that. And just having planned my own wedding, getting married, being an art major, being in school, I was like a graphic design, like fine art major, I guess. So I was already in that like creative world, but not really photography. And I pretty much just decided like, I'm doing this. I'm going to learn how to get paid to take people's photos. And that was the beginning of it. And everyone's preparing their, final portfolios for graphic design to go get jobs and work at like major corporations, going to DC. And I was sitting on my computer watching Creative Live, reading blogs, like completely checked out. I was like, I'm starting my own business. This is it. And it was just like, it was a really exciting time. It was a scrappy time in my life. And it just takes me back to think about it. But yeah, it was like, I was still in school when I was starting my business.
Was there any incentive at that time to start your own business, or the talk at college was like, go get a good job?
Oh, no, no. They didn't prepare me whatsoever to start my own business at all. I quickly realized that I should have majored in marketing or business or something that would have talked about the things that I then needed to know. Like I became very aware that I knew nothing about running my own business. But the motivation was just, I didn't want to go get a job. I mean, I had worked many jobs and internships and all of that, but I didn't want that to be the permanent thing. And so really I was kind of keeping it hush hush in my classes and with my professors. I didn't really say like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
not going to apply for these graphic design positions. I just submitted everything, got out, and immediately went into photography. And what was interesting was my first photography clients were friends from college, like people who had seen that I started this business and I started my Facebook page. And, you just start putting things up saying, like, I'll take pictures for you guys. And like my first real wedding client was a friend through college.
Oh, that's nice. It's always good to do that first wedding with somebody that you know, that you feel a little bit more comfortable with, that knows your story of like, this is the beginning of my career. Hopefully, they'll be forgiven. Something happened. It's a little bit of a, breath to, that you can take when you know somebody for that first wedding.
Yeah, I mean, my anxiety was still like a 10
Oh,
because
yeah.
I had like rented most of my gear and you're thinking, can I actually pull this off? Like I took
Mhm.
someone's money. This is their wedding day.
Did you shoot that first wedding by yourself?
No, no. Honestly, I've only done a handful of weddings by myself. I'm not a big fan of shooting weddings alone. I did have a second shooter, and thankfully, I knew some photographers like distantly, and like knowing people was so important to be able to be like, hey, can you come second shoot with me? Even though I don't even think they paid for a second shooter, but I paid for the second shooter because I just wanted the insurance of having another person, another camera, more files. And it worked out so beautifully that I pretty much decided, like, unless it's a super intimate wedding, something very small, I always want to have a second shooter. And that was so helpful to have at the beginning.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on the same page with that. I feel like it's good to have another person there that understands what's happening. You never know. You could not be feeling well. Maybe, something could happen with your equipment, something could happen to you, but also just to have somebody there with you. Maybe you need to talk a little bit about the logistics of things, kind of bounce some ideas off of somebody. It's good to have that person there with you for all kinds of reasons.
100%. And I learned so much by being a second shooter for years that then it was fun to have second shooters that could learn from me. And it was like full circle. And, like you, I just love educating. I love sharing. And so I wouldn't gatekeep anything. If someone was asking, like, how did you set up your off camera flash? Or like, why do you put the settings the way you do? I'm sitting there like, okay, during dinner, I'll explain it.
Yeah,
And that was
that's
always a
great.
really fun, yeah, like just really satisfying. And I should have known then that I was gonna like go all the way in for education.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely some signs there early on. So, what are some of the key factors that enable you to transition to full time wedding and portrait photography just within those first 2 years?
This is a huge question. I love this. I would say, I mean, there's so many things, but getting mentorship from people who were already doing what I wanted to be doing and were living it and making money at it was something that I did really quickly. And I don't really know like what my business would have looked like without that. I don't know if I would have been able to make the decisions I did, invest in the ways that I did, because it just changes everything. Like all the education and mentorship that you get throughout your business, you carry with you. So I did do some mentorship like really early on and honestly like get my hands on any education that I possibly could. So I would have mentors that didn't even know I existed because I was just looking at their blogs, I was looking at their videos. Like it wasn't always a formal paid mentorship, although I did do that. But if they recommended a book, I read that book. I read and have read so many business books and things about sales and pricing and marketing and customer service because I quickly realized I did not know enough about these things. And every time I try to learn something, I realize, okay, wait, there's 4 more things I have to learn. And that overwhelm in the beginning is really big, but I've found a lot of guidance and like groundedness in just being a student. And like that really has never gone away. Like I'm over here with 2 coaches currently. It's like you're never done being a student, but that really helped me. I also focused really, really heavily on my personal brand and my visual brand. And like I said, I was a graphic design major. So that did help me in the beginning to be able to, not put out like a fully cringe website. And like even my first logo, like it really wasn't half bad. Like I like did my signature in like calligraphy and then like scanned it and digitized it. And it was okay. It wasn't too bad. I think having cohesion across my platforms very early on, like from day one, I was consistent with my colors. I was consistent with my fonts. I was obsessed with typography because I was a graphic designer. That I quickly realized people were taking me more seriously than they probably should have because I looked more established than I really was. And that helped me. And then I had to quickly like learn everything at second shoot and make sure that I could deliver on everything that people were assuming. But that really, really, really helped me, I will say, to be able to garner higher prices and just build authority. But I also will say that something that helped me go full time really quickly was having the humility to be at the bottom and work for free and second shoot for whatever they would give me and collaborate with people, like put myself out there, really just like be willing to be shut down and not have any ego. Because I found out really quickly that photographers have a lot of ego. And some of the really established photographers did, and some of them didn't. And I was like, man, if I ever make it, like, I just don't want to be like that. And so I was just willing to, schlep it a little bit for people and like do whatever I could do to get in the room, to collaborate, to be featured somewhere. I was really willing to just kind of ask and be turned down. And in a lot of ways, like just putting myself out there and being willing to say, like, hey, I'll take what I can get instead of saying, I'll come and I'll do this for you, but you have to pay me this. That helped me because then I made connections and I was able to grow my portfolio, be published. It just like it was all a snowball, but I really feel like it started with humility.
Yeah, I think that comes a lot from that learning mindset, that, continuous learning mindset. So this was something that was drilled into my head as a physical therapist, that we are continuous learners, and then we have to always be improving. We're constantly having to take continuing education courses. So it was just part of how I always thought. This is part of how I think from any kind of professional standpoint. So it was really nice to transition into this career and be able to accelerate my growth just from the understanding that I should be getting coached really early on. I should be investing on myself from a mentoring and coaching standpoint and not wait until I try to figure it all on my own before I reach out to somebody. So definitely see some similarities there too. But I know that a lot of that for me came from just the kind of profession that I was in before. But it makes a huge difference with how much it accelerates your growth to have that support from coaches. And you talked about books too. I'm doing some training right now in communication, and that mentor talks about every book that you read is a warrior that stands behind you in your journey to be part of your army.
I love
So,
that.
how many people do you have in your army to support you in the journeys? It's equivalent to how many books you've read to kind of give you that knowledge and support to be successful. So, I love all of that.
That's so good. I remember hearing from one of my mentors that if you can't afford to work with someone, buy their book because it's probably $10, $20 for some of their best life work and best experience on whatever that topic is. And I find that to be true of most books. Like some books, they don't deliver on the promise, but most of them do. Most of them are well worth the 15, $20 investment.
Let's talk about content creation a little bit. So, how has that, particularly maybe a YouTube channel, played a role on growth and visibility for your business? Can you share maybe some insights on how that content can be leveraged by photographers?
Yes. YouTube has been the backbone of the visibility for my business, like by far. I really truly don't know where my business would be without it. But I can confidently tell you that PhotoBoss would not be a thing, and that content creation, that was such an important part of my business from the beginning. And it wasn't even like I knew that that was a good idea. I just heard from, people that I looked up to that it was really important. So I started doing it, and then I started seeing the results of it. And I was like, okay, this is important. This is something that I have to make sure every week that I have time for. Like, no matter how busy I get, no matter how big my editing queue is, no matter what happens, I have to make content. So being able to be consistent and create a body of work helped me so much to get visible. It helped me to build brand authority and truly, like, with that, elevate my business to higher prices and more profitability. So yeah, I mean, what would be helpful to share? Because I know YouTube is like, it's kind of a beast.
I know there's a lot going on there. Do you remember how long did it take for you to start seeing results from posting some content on YouTube?
That's a great question. When I first initially started on YouTube, I committed to doing it for a year. So I think that really put the pressure off of me for a second. I knew that I needed to publish every single week for a year. And then at that point, I would decide if it was worth it. Somewhere along the way, probably at like 6 months, I started seeing that a community was developing and that the visibility was going up and the comments were going up, and I was getting asked more questions, getting more engagement, to the point where like a year came and went and like it wasn't even a question. Like, am I going to keep doing this? So I would say, it took a bit. It wasn't quick. It wasn't like the first 10 or even 20 videos, maybe. It was like once I had a decent, maybe 25 videos on YouTube, I started feeling like, okay, wait, I think we're on to something. But there's a point, there's like a gap point where you're doing something and you're not necessarily getting the results from it. And it's taking a lot of time where your mindset has to be there to stay with it. Because if you look at the results, it doesn't look great. Like, you're publishing every week, you're doing the thing, you're showing up, you get like 3 thumbs up on the video, and you're like, but that took me a while. That was a lot. That was like my best effort. It's a little cringe. Like, those videos, they're not the best videos on the internet, but like they were the best that I could do. And then there's that gap of like you're in the waiting zone. That was a part where I think entrepreneurs have to have that grit and the fortitude to believe in something, even when the results aren't there. I remember people, kind of being like asking, like, but in a kind of like pointed way, like, well, why are you giving all of this information away? Like, even one of the big name photographers in the DC market was like, you're giving too much away. And it didn't deter me, but I felt misunderstood. I felt like, you don't understand what I'm trying to build, and you think I'm giving away all of our trade secrets. But I didn't believe in trade secrets because people had helped me to get to where I was. And you hang out with me for like 10 minutes and you realize I don't gatekeep. And that's where like PhotoBoss came from. It was like this belief, like we can stop the gatekeeping now, that should be our tagline.
Yeah. How did you decide what goes on YouTube and what stays not hidden, but like more guarded for your courses?
Initially, I had no course in the world. I was just creating content and education to build that community and to build the brand. And so I didn't think, oh, I'm going to save this piece of information for my course, or I'm not going to share that. I really just looked at it as, if I can be of value, then people will very quickly decide whether I'm for them or not. They'll decide if they like the way I display information, and maybe they'll stick around by the time I do have a course. And there was like years in between because I was so busy photographing weddings and portraits and doing like the service-based side that I couldn't crank out courses as quickly as I wanted to. But I didn't think about it too hard because I always subscribed to the idea of like generosity is what makes content so good, especially when it comes to education. Like, if I can't be entertaining, although I think some of my content is slightly entertaining, then I need to at least be helpful and generous. So that's like, I didn't overthink it. I was just like, let me just give everything that I have within reason. Like, I try to keep the videos short so that it's digestible.
I like that. I can see how a lot of people can struggle with that. And if you truly love content creation, you just want to do it. You want to put it
Yeah.
together. And I find myself sometimes as I'm putting content together, maybe I'll stop and be like, "Wait, should I be talking about all of this? Should I save some for, some paid content?" It is so hard to not do it because I'm like you. I wanna give back. I love teaching, and it's really hard to kind of figure it out what to put out there that would be, one, of value, but also valued by the person getting it for free, because there is some psychology behind paying for something and getting something for free. There is a little bit more of a weight that you put behind the things that you paid for versus the things that you get it for free. So I didn't want to diminish the value of what I was giving out by not charging anything for it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like when after making a few hundred videos and then coaching a few hundred photographers, even one on one, I've realized there is such a difference between the free education and customized feedback. And because I had invested in coaching, I knew that you could never hold a candle to a fully fleshed out program that has the steps that are in line and has the workbook and it has so like, I know the difference. And I think a lot of my students, because of that, they believe that too. They see the difference. They're like, when I'm ready to be to my next level and to like really leap to that next level, then they jump into coaching and they've absorbed all the free content, and yet they still want to coach because there's it's different. That you can't hold a candle to it.
Yeah, I think that's why I really love one-on-one coaching, and that's the main thing that I try to push people towards when I'm offering services, is because most of the time people don't even know where the issue is in their business. And they're trying to consume education that is really not going to solve the problem that they have, because they haven't spent the time to really identify where is the gap, and how can I have somebody help me fill this specific gap. They might think they need more leads, when at the end of the day they might just need to learn how to sell better and how to close the deal. They have people coming through the door, but they're not being efficient at, finishing that transaction. So that's what I think. Giving this content for free, as we're saying, it's really valuable to still continue to do that. But there's nothing like one-on-one coaching.
I completely agree with you. It's like you said, getting the outside eyes of an expert and somebody looking at things, they're going to see something you don't see. And that's the beauty of coaching. That's the beauty of like even friendship and relationships, is like we're all seeing things through a different lens. And there's so much insight in that. And you don't want to just stay in a little chamber by yourself. You need to like open that up to input, of course, the right input, but you
Yeah,
definitely want to get the input.
absolutely. So based on your experience from coaching, what are some of the common mistakes that photographers make when they're transitioning to a full-time position?
Oh, okay. I feel like this could be its own book, but there's a couple that come to mind just based on patterns that I've seen through the thousands of photographers that have come through PhotoBoss, and in talking to photographers one-on-one, I start to see patterns of mistakes. And so I'll share a couple with you. So the first mistake that I see is an overemphasis on gear. There is a tipping point where you have enough gear, and of course, you do need gear, but more gear will not necessarily make any more difference in your business, because more gear is not going to bring you visibility, brand authority, marketing, any of the such, right? So, like, there's still an over allocation happening. And so, of course, it's like with any artist, if you look at a painter, yeah, they need paintbrushes, they need paint, they need a canvas. But at a certain point, buying 5 more paintbrushes is not going to get them a custom art commission. It's just not. And I see that a lot, more than you would think sometimes. It's amazing. I would be working with a photographer who has some incredible gear. Like, they can spout off the names of all of their lenses and their flashes, like all the things. And I'm like, I'm so impressed. But at the same time, they are struggling to get like basic consistent bookings, or just lacking systems, all sorts of different things that can be going wrong. And at the end of the day, that incredible mirrorless camera body and the full flash system that you have set up isn't marketing for you. It isn't putting your stake in the ground saying, here's who I am, here's what my personal brand stands for, here's how I'm different. And so it's just an overemphasis in that area. And I think understanding that gear is one area to invest in. And for photographers, it becomes super obvious. Like, that's like, yes, I need that, I need that, I need that, I need that next preset or whatever it is. But there are other areas of your business that also need attention and are also going to need some of the allocation of your budget. And so knowing how to allocate that money when appropriate and know when your gear is enough, it's reached a tipping point, that is so crucial. It's crazy because the most talented, the best photographers aren't the ones being the most successful. It's the best marketers. I didn't take the best pictures in Annapolis. There were people who could have run circles around me, but they weren't booking because they didn't have the other pieces that I did have. So understanding it's almost like a 3-leg stool, and you're just like, one of those legs is like really sturdy. It's like, great, awesome, you have the gear, but now we need to step into some other things.
Today's episode is sponsored by Accidental CEO. Hello there, my CEOs. I'm Nada Salvatore, founder of Accidental CEO, an education and coaching platform where we believe every surprise in your career is a step towards greatness. Whether you found yourself unexpectedly in charge or you're actively seeking to climb the leadership ladder, we are here to guide you. I specialize in transforming emergent leaders like you into confident CEOs through target education and personalized coaching. With Accidental CEO, you gain access to exclusive workshops, one-on-one coaching, and a suite of online courses designed to hone your skills, refine your strategies, and amplify your business powers. My approach is tailored to fit your unique journey. I understand the twists and turns of becoming a CEO, especially when it's unexpected. That's why my programs are flexible, comprehensive, and driven by real-world success experiences. Don't just take the lead, master it. Our supportive community is here to ensure you emerge as a visionary leader, equipped to navigate any challenges and seize all opportunities. Visit us today at accidentalceo.co to learn more about how we can help transform your accidental position into a deliberate and successful leadership legacy. Accidental CEO, where you learn to lead not by chance, but by choice.
So that leads me to the next one. The other mistake that I see is staying and playing small in terms of visibility. Not submitting your work to get published, not trying to collaborate with vendors whose names you're like, no, they're so far above me, not reaching out to see if you can get on a preferred vendor list or if you can collaborate with somebody in terms of content. It's like, it's called reaching for a reason. It is a stretch. You are putting yourself out there and saying, hey, I have this idea, and you're not going to feel ready. I think is like the belief that's holding them back is like, once I get this gear, once I book that dream wedding and I have the portfolio, then I'm going to submit to Style Me Pretty. But I will tell you, if you are not submitting some work that now like later makes you a little cringe that it's published, you waited too long. You're struggling with perfectionism, because I had some stuff published year one that had no business being published, that only got published because I was submitting it everywhere. I was asking, I was reaching, I was saying like, how do you do this? Like, then people would ask me, well, how the heck are you getting published? Like, you just started a business like 8 months ago. Because I was asking, I was seeking the visibility, because my fear of it being cringe was just slightly smaller than my fear of not showing up anywhere and not being anyone. I needed to get seen. I think that like was inside of me. I was like, we've got to get seen. We've got to publish our work. And beautiful things happen when you get that visibility, because with that came so much more authority. So if it's not cringy, if you're not doing some cringe things, you're waiting too long. And then I think the last mistake is something that like we've been talking about in this episode, is like, the mistake is to go it alone, not locking arms with a mentor, not finding a coach. I hired a coach before I had photographed my first wedding, and bought programs and courses like from $10 things to $300 things to thousands of dollars worth of education, like over the years, spread out. Like at first it was, like $300 to talk to this person who was doing what I wanted to be doing, so that I had like my legal pad with all the questions. Like, I've got to ask her, I'm going to get my time and I'm going to ask her and I'm going to make the most of this. And then I'm going to take action on it. Cause it's like, you can learn a lot of stuff. A lot of people know a lot of stuff, but how much of like implementing and living and carrying out. So then implementing that was really, really big. But I will say, I didn't just magically know that I needed a coach. It was actually my dad who, when I told him, I was like, I don't really want to get a job. I think I want to be a photographer. Like, I think I want to do this. I mean, it was a job, right? But in his mind, I was like, I'm not applying for these traditional positions.
Right.
And, I didn't know what my parents were going to say. But one of the first things my dad said was like, who can you talk to that's doing what you want to be doing? Like, how can we get you like an internship or like in a situation where like you can sit with someone, not that's like a really good photographer, like an Uncle Steve. Like I'm talking like somebody that's out in the weeds, like, sorry, Steve, if you're listening.
Sorry, Uncle Steve.
I'm sorry. We still love you, but I'm talking like someone who's like, they're doing this as a business and they have a personal brand. Like they're literally doing what you want to be doing. And so I did. And I ended up interning for my wedding photographer and second shooting for her. And like it came full circle. It was crazy. But I worked for her for free for months because she was letting me see like everything in her business. Like, I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if that was like the right way to do it, but I'm still appreciative of that because I had the time in my life to be like, hey, I'm going to drive to your house. I'm going to bring you coffee. You're going to show me how you curate galleries. I mean, I learned Lightroom. I learned so much about everything. I mean, I just asked her questions. She had a baby on her lap and I was her intern. But if I didn't reach out and ask for these opportunities, I mean, who knows where I'd be? Probably not sitting here talking to you.
Yes, that would be so sad.
I
So
know.
sad.
So
So
sad.
I think a lot of that fixation with the gear comes from a place of focusing on something that you have more control over. Because if you think about it, I can list the gear, I can go and purchase. So I have control over that. I was like, I have this, I have that, I have everything that I need. But a lot of the other things that we're talking about are things that are more mindset, driven, and you have to go out there. You can't play small. You have to put yourself out there. You have to invest in some coaching. A lot of these things might seem a little bit more out of control to people. So I think that hyperfixation in gear comes from that. It's something that people feel like they can control. It's like, I have this list of really good things that are going to help me go to the next level. And I 100% see the same thing when I'm coaching too. So
it's also, I think it's like gear is physical and tangible. It's like you paid for it, it came and you can hold it. Whereas a lot of the other things that you're doing, even like blogging and doing SEO optimization on your website or going to a conference, like beyond the actual physically being there, it is a more abstract concept of what you got. And the longer I'm in business, the more I realize like it's all the like mindset and it's more the abstract that is more valuable to me than any piece of physical gear that I have, which is saying something because I have a lot of gear, but you know what I mean? Like, I just know that like you truly do start to believe what everybody says in the beginning of like, it's not the gear that makes it, it's the photographer. It's not, the camera didn't take the picture, you did. But you really, truly do start to see that that is true. And to your point, it is easier to control, like buying the thing, than checking these boxes of visibility, brand authority, creating content, pitching, putting yourself out there. I mean, if it helps, make the list, work through the list and say like, I am doing something. I am submitting my work. I am doing the stylized shoot. I am meeting this person and creating this genuine vendor relationship so that we can refer work to each other. Like that is so valuable just as much as when you bought the new SD cards and when you got the new fancy preset, like whatever felt like it was going to take you forward. Those things are just as valid too. You just don't get the like dopamine hit of like, now I get to click this button and the preset changed everything. It's not as immediate, but it is so impactful.
yeah, definitely crucial. So you talk about building a magnetic personal brand. What are some of the essential elements that photographers should focus on when developing their personal brand?
I think like just embracing the fact that you do have a personal brand is step number one. Sometimes I think that we try to emulate businesses that aren't a personal brand in terms of the scale of our marketing, in terms of how many places we're trying to show up, different platforms, even just saying like, no, I have this unique advantage of being a personal brand. I think that's step number one. And then really developing out the experience that you offer. I think coming back to like what you love. So often with artists, like the work is the natural part. The work is like there's so much passion and reason and story into why you started your business. So making that real by like just knowing like a couple bullet points of like, who are you? What's your story? What unique background do you have? Like, do you have past work experience? It might feel irrelevant, but it's not, because it's your unique perspective and the story that you have is being interpreted now through your work and through your business. So embracing the story that you have, I think, is a big one. But I will also say just not needing to be or try to be for everyone is really, really helpful when creating a magnetic brand. And I heard this like year one with Jasmine Star. And she was like, you're not going to be for everyone. You attract and repel. And so when I felt weird about putting something out there, I would just like share an opinion or put my work out there even. I'd be like, it's not for everyone. I'm attracting and repelling. I'm attracting and repelling. And it was just something I could continue to go back to when creating my client experience, when choosing, anything, the colors, everything, realizing I'm not going to be someone's cup of tea, but somebody else is going to be like, that one. That's the one I want. And that's what you're ultimately striving for as a personal brand, is to be memorable, not be vanilla, not be for everybody, because you've put your stake in the sand in a few distinct ways. Your work being one of them, your story being one of them, and your experience too. I think just leaning into and then drawing out and being able to talk about how you have that client experience is so, so, so valuable. I find that a lot of business owners have a really beautiful experience. They really value their clients and they build these incredible relationships, but they just need to figure out how to make that obvious before they're booked with. I say that I'm like, you have all these amazing clients that are obsessed with you and love you and all these reviews. And I'm like, okay, how can we make this obvious to someone who doesn't know you yet that they're gonna have this incredible experience with you? So that pulling that out, really, really important. And then I would say like the last thing I would say about branding is it's just as much about what you say and show as it is about what you don't say and show. So really like knowing like what are things I don't do? What are things I don't believe? What are things I would not say? Even words I would not use, because as we follow people, we start to read in their voice, kind of like we start to hear them in their words and we start to see work. I know I follow photographers. And I'm like, I know who this is. I didn't even see the image, like the little profile image and their name. Like I know immediately who that is because they have a distinctive style. And that is just as much about what they do share as what they don't.
Yeah, those are great, great points. It's way beyond colors in logos and your font on your website. There's a lot that goes into building that brand identity. And those are all great tips for that. What are some of your top visibility marketing secrets that have helped you gain some good attention and grow your community?
I would say submitting work. We've talked about that a little bit. Submitting to be featured in other places beyond your own platform is a wonderful way to get visibility. Collaboration as a whole, whether you collaborate in the way that you make content, you go live with somebody on Instagram, collaboration is so powerful. It's a way to borrow other people's audiences. If you can guest on someone else's blog, even like do a blog post swap, you are being exposed to someone that or hopefully lots of people that would never have normally found you. So I'm always looking for ways to trade reach in terms of visibility, get on other places and platforms that I don't own in terms of visibility. And then on the platforms I can control, I'm going to be leveraging video marketing whenever I possibly can. And I'm going to be leveraging search engine optimization. So I want to get visibility on my native platforms. And I also want to use other people's platforms. I would say on the community side of things, building a community, what has helped me get visibility and grow the community primarily has been YouTube. YouTube is just the most powerful search engine owned by Google. So when I've created content, it's also helped my website to do better as well. So it's worked really beautifully in synergy with like my blog and my SEO and all of that. But I will also say that very quickly moving to Facebook was a good move in terms of the community aspect, because YouTube is not a community. YouTube is not where people are sharing judgment-free dialogue, at least not typically, right? Like YouTube is like a broadcast, and then yes, you get your comments, but it's not typically the same kind of atmosphere that you would want in like a typical community. So moving to a platform where community thrives, not to say that like Facebook is the platform. There are so many amazing community platforms that are specifically built for communities. But Facebook groups do really, really well to help the members of the community have a voice and have a place to speak and it not feel like everything is just a comment under Joy's video. So moving to where it is appropriate is always a good move if you're thinking in terms of building a community. Like, where does community naturally happen? And you see that a lot in Facebook groups. Like, for better or for worse, you see a lot of information being exchanged, a lot of, hopefully good content happening, sometimes lots of arguing. Not in my groups though. We don't let that happen. But, I'm just talking about other people's Facebook, the neighborhood
Everybody else.
Facebook. Like, I'm sitting there
Oh
lurking.
gosh,
I'm like, ooh, this is
those are the
interesting.
worst.
They really are.
I think Facebook, there's something different about having a community there than all these other platforms. And I don't know, it almost feels to me like there's more anonymity when it comes to the other places. And on Facebook, it's more like everybody's here. It's almost like you can see people better. And I don't know if it's because they can start their own conversation by creating a new post, or like you said, not everything is under this one video that you created is not all attached to you. So I feel like people were a little bit more visible when it comes to Facebook communities than other places. I don't know if that's what it is, but there's something to me that feels more like I can see who you are better there than I can on YouTube.
Yeah, and on Facebook, it goes back to like someone's real profile with like a banner image of like their family vacation and their picture. And I think like when we have our actual life attached to that Facebook page or profile, we're probably going to interact a little bit differently than just this like burner account we created for YouTube stalking. Like,
Yeah.
all the hater comments are just like the most random accounts. You can't really trace it to a person because there's that anonymity. So I think you're right about that. That's true. And I think that, like you said, them being able to start their own conversations and be a member of something that's like outside of me leading the conversation, it then I think it like leads to this natural feeling of belonging because they're not waiting for me to start the conversation. Sometimes they're just jumping in and then they find their friends. Like, I've had people say that they met their best friend inside of my Facebook group. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, there's real community and real connection happening. And it's just, I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of building a community is like seeing that it's not you anymore. It's like so far beyond you. It's like your kids grew up and became friends. Like,
Yeah. I love that. How much of the total work that you do is shooting still? How much shooting are you still doing for weddings and portraits?
yeah, at the moment, very little. I would say like the only real shooting work that I'm doing at the moment is like family clients, headshots and branding work, not weddings. It doesn't align right now, especially since I'm a new Florida resident and I have two small kids at home. And, my education businesses are like my focus. But it was a slow transition out. I will say, like, it took years and years. And there was, 5 years of overlap between running essentially both businesses.
Definitely a transition there to stop doing the thing that kind of got you to where you are today and letting that go. It's probably not easy.
It isn't. No, it isn't. And it's a big identity shift. And just stepping into this era and this iteration has been really interesting. I think what's really beautiful about entrepreneurship is that like you get to decide how it's going to look. And if in a few years I want to re-enter, like, okay, now I'm going to, open a studio and now I'm going to do this and that. It's like I can. And if I want to, move into something completely different, you can. And so I think like really not letting yourself be defined and be limited by like what you've seen other people do and what your family or your friends or your industry peers are expecting you to do is really, really important. Because I think sometimes we're sitting in a role that's like somewhat what we want to be doing, but not 100% what we want to be doing because we don't feel like we're allowed to just step into the thing that we want to be doing. So yeah, I would have given a pinky toe to be a wedding photographer in 2013, and then I became one, and then like this slow shift started taking place, and now I'm like all in as a coach, educator, course creator, content creator. Like I still feel like I have 5 jobs, but my heart towards being a full-time wedding photographer completely shifted. Like completely. I'll be totally honest with you. Yeah.
I'm sure it happened a lot too after having kids, because that changes a lot.
It changes things. It changes how I saw my business, how I saw my time and my impact and my legacy. There was a lot there. And while I did still photograph weddings for years after having kids, while pregnant, while pumping, like doing all the things, it eventually, I felt like my highest calling was somewhere else. And I don't think that has to be for everyone. Like that's not that like every woman has to experience that. But I feel like my highest contribution is photo boss now.
So as a business coach, podcaster, mom, and still occasionally photographer, how do you manage all these roles? Do you have any tips for our listeners who might be juggling multiple responsibilities like you do?
I do. I have some tips, and I will say like that's essentially what the Called to Both podcast is about. It's really about feeling like you're called to being an amazing provider, an entrepreneur, and business owner, but also a really present parent. And what does that look like tangibly and actionably on a daily basis? I feel like the first word that comes to mind when you're juggling a lot of roles is just boundaries. Having boundaries around everything. Like your schedule, what you're letting in, what information and influence you're letting in. Boundaries have been such a big part of how I've been able to maintain my businesses and my content and all the things, but still feel like I have some separation and I have some intentional time to be a mom at the same time. Also, I feel like knowing what is enough, because as entrepreneurs, it just feels like the goalpost can just keep moving. You reach the goal, or that could be financial, that could be take home pay, that could be like a number of subscribers or followers or bookings, even. And it's crazy how we say, like, okay, I just want 15 weddings. And then as soon as you get the 15, you're not closing your books and you're not sticking to that belief of like that was your enough. But now the goalpost has changed. Now you want just like a few more, and you're starting this other side business. And so really grounding yourself in what is enough and having the vision ahead of time of that is really important. Otherwise, it's really hard to have like contentment, and it's really hard to see people who are running their businesses probably very differently than you make very different decisions and not let it mean something about your business. So that is something that is really essential and is like a constant thing, like every year I think we have to check in and look and say like, what is my enough, so that when I reach it, we can say like, well done, you've done it. Like, yay, let's sit back and not be like, what's next? What's next? I think like knowing yourself too. I'm like an achiever type personality. And so saying like, okay, perfect. We reached this number of downloads for the podcast and we got this big sponsor and we did this thing. Instead of being like, yay, like, let's tell everyone, let's celebrate. I'm like, all right, no, what else can I get? I bet I can, the next one can be twice as big. It's like my brain doesn't even let me celebrate. So really taking that time to cultivate contentment, I think is a really big one. But also like just scheduling, like really tangibly. We have some episodes on scheduling and tools and tricks and just how does that look like on a tangible weekly basis. Really, I feel like my relationship with time has changed so much because the more that I've added to my plate, the more that I've had to get honest with myself about how I'm actually spending my time. And then linking that to like my income. So realizing like there are things that we do, that I do, that you do, that do not lead to income or that don't proportionally lead to the return that we need them to. So really like going through my business and just being like, all right, we're going to 80-20 this. Like we got to figure out what's the 20% that's bringing in the 80% of the revenue, and how can I double down on the thing that's working and the thing that I'm most effective at, and just let the rest of it go, which is a trust fall to say the least.
Yeah, not easy.
No.
Any big projects or new things coming up for you for your brand?
Yes. We have some free classes that are going to be coming out. So I've been working on some new trainings. We have a whole new series coming to the YouTube channel called The Business Reboot, which I'm so excited about. It's like a whole free series just to help that like stuck and discouraged creative to say like, okay, how can we press the reset button this spring and feel excited about our businesses again? And then I do have a program coming out. I don't know when, so I'm not going to put any like dates or promises out there, but I do have a program coming out for the established photographer who's ready to diversify their income and just not rely on one stream of revenue anymore. And that is like, I am so pumped about that. I'm working on that just like behind the scenes between all my coaching clients. And I'm like, oh, I'm pumped to even to create the content to talk about it is so fun because there's so much opportunity for diversifying your revenue.
Absolutely. That's all great and exciting. So here's a golden question that I'm asking all my guests now. How does Joy Michelle define success? What is your definition of success?
That's so good. To me, success is about impact and legacy. And I think that having experienced monetary success, I realized that you need the other elements as well. So creating an impact, a positive impact on the creative community, and then having a legacy that my kids can see and experience is for me what success means right now. Yeah.
I love it. Very good. So tell everybody where they can find you if they want to learn more from you and use your services out there.
Awesome. Yeah. So I am at Joy Michelle Co. That's my website, at Joy Michelle on all social platforms, and Joy Michelle on YouTube. And then the podcast is called To Both.
Thank you so much, Joy, for spending some time with me. I know you're busy, but I know there's a lot of good tips and strategies that our audience can take from our conversation today. I really appreciate you, and I'm so happy that we were able to do this.
Oh my gosh, Nada, this was an honor. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us today, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.